my dear, I'll be there soon. It's a quiet, starry place. Times we're swallowed up in space. We're here a million miles.
The image of what causes homelessness, and I hear this comment often when people say, well, kids are homeless or people are homeless because they want to be. I think the big issues that we face with homeless youth, and really one of my major concerns, is that youth are so young that then they end up on the streets and they become very vulnerable to a variety of different issues: substance abuse, crime, sexual exploitation, victimization through bullying and violence, and of course then it ends up with not having access to education, a place to live, a family that cares about them. So
it's the idea that before they actually got into homelessness, they were probably from some type of dysfunction in the family. So there was no real emotional support there. So if you can look at how the life cycle goes, as they're younger, there has to be a lot of family support. When they become adolescents, they're trying to go through their own growth thing and trying to understand themselves. Well, during that period of time, they're homeless.
The lack of a stable person in their life, like a stable support system, so someone to turn to when, things don't always go right. Most young people growing up, if, they lose a job, they would have their parents to turn to if they didn't have anywhere to go after losing their job and not being able to pay their rent at some time. These youth don't have that. So that stable support system is definitely something that is a huge need.
Not having the support or family members, sometimes it's drugs and alcohol, substance abuse, mostly support. They don't have that connection to family. They just leave a group home or a foster home and they have no one left.
The most common, I would say, theme is the stability. So having a stable network, a community of people that support them. So they might have some family members, but they kind of come in and out of their lives. So having that stable network that's in their life is very important, and a lot of them lack that due to having difficulties holding relationships or communicating with others. That's what kind of brings that barrier to them.
With education being one of the most vital tools to success in America, it is essential that homeless youth have this opportunity. Currently, 2/3 of homeless adults have not received a high school diploma, stressing the importance of an education for these youth.
one of the things that has been done has been an attempt to try to make sure that homeless youth, get the education they need through the McKinney-Vento Act. And so all of the school districts throughout the United States have homeless liaisons to work with you. Unfortunately, they really can't address all the issues that homeless youth have, especially those youth who end up, getting off the radar and ending up on the streets. So oftentimes we find youth on the streets or coming to our shelter that have really been disconnected from the school system, way behind in credits, maybe have had learning disabilities that were never addressed. So one of the primary needs is to really make sure we reconnect young people with education and get them back on track.
So in my opinion, that this all starts from when they're children. So when they're in middle school, elementary school, that's when the behavioral issues start to occur, and that's where, the school districts need to intervene with it and figure out what the whole holistic issue is, what's going on at home and why they are acting out, as opposed to just blaming it on the child and not really addressing the issue or sending them to a different school because of those behavioral issues. Because eventually when they are in high school and they are 18, that the parent is legally allowed to kick them out and remove them from their home. And at that point is when we have this large population of homeless youth.
Some of the barriers that homeless youth face is that not all school districts really comply and address the McKinney-Vento Act as they should. If all school districts are in compliance with McKinney-Vento, there's a lot of resources for homeless youth, and they really do get some priority in making sure that some of those barriers that might be broken down, like you need to have an address, and you need to have, documentation and those things. A lot of homeless youth don't have that, so those things are barriers for them to getting into, schools.
40% of homeless youth are LGBT, 68% of which have been rejected by their parents.
I've been homeless for nearly 7 years. When you're gay and homeless and it's obvious that you're a part of the LGBTQ community, you get discriminated on hard. It's scary. It took a very big toll on me emotionally. I never got full hours of rest. I would doze off, wake up, check my surroundings, doze off, and it was just constant. The teenager or preteen sitting next to you on the train, you think they're taking a nap coming from school when that's their sleep for the day, just so that they could stay up at night and make sure they're okay and nothing bad happens to them.
Which is really tragic. So LGBT youth, for example, are overrepresented in terms of the numbers that there are, and they have a very high percentage that end up homeless on the streets. As you can imagine, youth who are homeless become disconnected from a lot of systems and resources that used to support them. So, and in addition, a lot of homeless youth, I'd say about 100% of the homeless youth have had some kind of trauma or traumatic experience in their life. This oftentimes contributes to some of the mental health issues that homeless youth face, and we find that probably around 50% or more of homeless youth have some kind of mental health issue. There's depression, there's anxiety. In addition to mental health, there's what we call dual diagnosis, where substance abuse is a factor because most of these youth end up getting involved in substances as well as a coping mechanism or as a way to survive on the streets. So then you're dealing with mental health and substance abuse issues. So it's a significant issue. There's not a lot of resources.
A lot of mental health, and self-esteem, showing that these youth when they're younger that they can be whatever they want to be, that they can dream whatever, they can dream as big as they need to, and they can get there. It's just going to take time and it's going to take an effort on their part to get there.
And here they are, 18, 19, 20 years old, and they're kind of launching into their own lives. It's almost like going into a room and not having been in there before. You don't know what's around. And that's really what makes them the most anxious.
A lot of homeless youth have not had their physical health needs taken care of for many years, so they've been disconnected from that. So it could be dental care, it could be just getting a wellness check and a physical exam. And so it's really important to address that early on when we work with homeless youth to get them reconnected. But you find out a lot of issues. There's, as you can imagine, living on the streets and being malnourished, having different illnesses that never got dealt with. STDs are often a big issue for homeless youth, so it's something that we just have to make sure that we address it early on when we start to work with them and get them reconnected with the medical system. And they say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a community to address the homeless issue, both for adults and for youth. So it's really not just agencies like Santa Youth Services, it's the community.